What's going on, everybody? This is PT Burnham for the ZnZerna Music Hour and Cold Rhymes Records here in the new setup where we've got multiple ways to do things, and these cuts are seeming a little bit weird and slow, but hopefully we'll get that taken care of soon. So, welcome to the ZnZerna Music Hour. My name's PT Burnham, and I'm going to be your host. Tonight, we're going to be talking about basically the battle for the mind in the future that is now. And when I talk about this, what I'm talking about is the space that the mind has to think and to form new ideas, and the capacity for it to act in what I consider the way that it was meant to act, which is, not so tied into stimulus response, just like what a lot of people who work with like mindfulness and stuff call survival mode. You know, this is kind of like the constant animal mode, the way that most animals live, of like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to eat, so I go eat, and I, just respond to the stimuli of my brain and just do those things. Let me know if the audio's messed up or anything, as usual. So let's talk a little bit about the human and stimulus response and stuff like this. So, if you're in a mode of, I guess let's reverse a little bit. So everything in nature, you can see this shape that's following in nature, this shape that things follow. And it looks like a lightning strike or a root system, or like the patterns in an ant farm, if you look at those. And this shape, this pattern, is basically the pattern of seeking through the path of least resistance. You're seeing like roots get tested, and then the best one, or the one that is most sort of conductive and easy, is the one that is moved along and followed. So this is all just sort of a seeking for release, or in the case of electricity, or like a seeking of nourishment in the case of an ant farm or a root system. This shape, you can find it everywhere, this sort of branching. It's in trees, in the branches too. So it's everywhere, and this is the following of the path of least resistance. And it's basically stimulus response in a nutshell, where you're acting to sort of like the way that your brain has been trained to act, without thinking, and just following the different routes, like a river. Like same way that a river does, is it digs in and it follows those paths consistently, pretty much simply because it's followed them before. So that's sort of the stimulus response mode that all animals exist in, and that humans exist in too, a lot of the time. But we have something which has been demonstrated throughout history, something very powerful that no other organism seems to have, which is the ability to shift is it giving me all sorts of problems? So let me know in the chat if it's getting crazy. It's giving me some warnings and stuff on here. If I need to, I can hit an intermission real quick and see if I can change some things. But anyways, this is the first time I'm doing it with these, multiple camera angles and, like a little Zerna and stuff. Okay, cool. So let's get back to the task at hand. So, what up, Artemis? It's good to see you. Creech, I'm so glad that you're in the building, Creech. Excellent to see you. Viz, oh, excellent, excellent. Got some true wonderful heads in the building. So, what we're talking about is this stimulus response way of being is fine for animals, but there is a thing in us which is our, well, I'm going to be talking about it as our will, as our something that I view as someone who leans in a Buddhist direction as separate from the mind. But if you makes you more comfortable, you can view it as part of the mind as well. But it has been demonstrated throughout history that it is able to create a different path. One that, the path of least resistance would be to do this. But instead, with my will, I am going to do this other thing, a whole different thing. And that will is holy, or the closest thing that I can think of to holy. This will is and powerful. If you don't want to, for me, I view it as something to get close to because I see it as very holy, but it's also got a lot of power in it. This way of being, which is more mindful and seeing with sort of fresh eyes and seeing what could be possible and how to use your will, which is like your mind, your will as filtered through your mind, through your actions and into the world. So we could go a number of directions with this in terms of the human mind, but Viz, you'll know what I'm talking about here with the swords in tarot. What we're talking about with swords and with language and with thinking is basically ways of dividing the world. You're cutting things into definitions, you're defining things, and nothing can exist without definition, and definition implies limitation. That is one of the main rules of existence. You must be defined, so you must be limited by existence. So anything that you're seeing and sort of intaking in your world, you're automatically, even without thinking of it, but also sometimes when you are thinking of it, you're chopping it up and classifying it and defining it, and a lot of that is based mostly on your preconceptions. So, and this is just a sort of crash course in some of these basic ideas, but you're seeing through a filter of preconception. And that is fine when you're doing stimulus response stuff, and actually, in fact, it has its benefits for stimulus response living. But the life of the creative, the life of somebody who's going to use their will to be creative, yes, yeah. Samsara is a great concept to be looking up in relationship to this. So, thank you, Viz. So this is the key. This is the key to a lot of what I view as the art life or the creative life. Which really, you think about this, the creative, to create and to mold the reality around us. That is definitely what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the fight for your mind. There's a lot of voices. Brody, what up? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. This is some interesting stuff that we're talking about. So, and you and I have definitely spoken on this kind of thing in the past. So, this is like the art life, the creative life, to see the world and recreate it in some different mold. And the reason it's such kind of a fight, and this is the important thing to remember, even if you're not an artist, is that there's a lot of voices in the world right now that are streaming into your world that are unbidden by you. You did not choose to listen to them. You did not choose to want to hear them or see them or whatever, but all this stimuli is pushing its way into your world. Most of that stimuli is generated by people with the money to generate that stimuli. We're just talking about, marketers. We're talking about marketing advertising, and all the things that come along with that world, this world that we're living in, where there is more and more power for individuals to reach out into other individuals' graphic space, personal space in general, with sounds, visuals, whatever. And that power is mostly used by people like advertisers to push into your world and try to influence your mind. Now, it's important to note here that, like, it's not about like the evils of advertising. What's happened there is the thing that spurred innovation is advertising, because they could sell stuff and that worked better within this environment. This environment is the issue here, but advertisers, it's not like, you're gonna solve anything by just being like, oh, let's like outlaw advertising or kill all the like advertisers or something. It's part of this general like sort of energized worldview that is not going to stop by any kind of like anything like that. But anyway, so your world is being pressed upon, and so when you're feeling like anxious and you're feeling maybe, I mean, not depressed, like, it doesn't explain all mental illness, but it's important to remember that there is a mindful center to you that is helpful to you and makes you feel whole and sure and positive. And being in touch with this is an exercise, something that is natural but also can be forgotten or set aside. And communicating with that part of yourself is just a key to being strong. And having like a strong center, a balance, so you don't feel so pushed around all the time and off balance. We are going to get into something really interesting with that a little later. What I want to talk about is right now is the reclaiming of the space. And I think to do that, what I'm going to do is do my first transition into a pre-recorded thing that I shot in the dust room earlier. So here we go. Let me know how it goes. Roddy, what's going on? Welcome to the dust room. This is the place where the Zernas were born. It's a room full constantly of dust from the buffing of guitars. This is a block of compound, and it is in this that I originally found the shape of the Zernas, which began as sort of, I guess you could call them sculpture, but it used the wheels to sculpt this into cat shapes, which I then started drawing. The big point that I wanted to make about this is that this place is quite kind of a hostile environment. In general, it's dusty, you have to wear safety protection, it's loud as shit. Like,